Hello, this is Aaron Toms, and this is my Don't Make Me Think video presentation for INF 650. The four interfaces I've chose, I'll be grading on these five criteria: design, website navigation, content, familiarity, mobility, in the varying degrees that each can come in. The first user interface I'm going to be reviewing is the Steam user interface, which is a free gaming console for PC, laptop, and some mobile devices. And to be clear, free console just means it's a way to play games. It's not a free gaming service. First off, the Steam design is attractive. It makes sense right off the bat. The key components are identified. Usage makes sense. It's simple to get away from one spot to the next. But one downside to Steam is that there is kind of a learning curve and can be confusing for first-time users. And just by seeing all the information on the screen in this picture that I chose, you can kind of see that. Because we have the links over to the right and the categories, and then the main navigation bar and the second navigation bar and the side navigation bar, and even each game has its own navigation bar. To a novice user of web interfaces, this can be a little confusing. So I scored it a 2. The website navigation is the next. So on the main website, there are 3 main navigation bars. So like the browse by genre, that's if you're looking for a game. Like the main game search bar, which is at the top, so featured items, games, software, demos. And at the very top is the site navigation bar, so store, community, and all that. Each are clear and simply labeled, so it's easy to navigate and understand what you're getting into when you click it. There are multiple ways to get to each spot. Let's say that you want to get to the community hub. You can actually access one of the video game areas and access the community hub for that specific game through that site. And again, it can be confusing. It's not meant for the first time internet user. I'd be kind of surprised if they went straight to downloading Steam for the first time using the internet. But again, I gave this the 2 because it's very usable, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. The content, it's straightforward for the most part. There's games, there's entertainment, they do offer movies, and they offer different types of programs for creativity. There's user submissions, as in you can mod games and applications that are offered on the website and submit them to the website, and they'll publish them, and there's a whole area for that. There's a community to where you can talk to each other about games or content. And finally, again, it's a little complex. There's a tiny bit of a learning curve. But for the most part, like if you know what you want to get on this application, you'll find it. It's not going to be difficult to get to. So I scored this a 3 out of 3. The familiarity. Steam is a little tricky on this because they're all about having fun, and they change up their website look pretty often to mainly make it make sense for that time of the year, or if there's something special going on, if they're having a big sale. They'll change their website completely just to like say hey to the user, there's something going on, which some people can see that as interesting and it's appealing to me, but it might be confusing for others. And for the most part, it does seem like a website. You can just scroll around and browse and look at all the content that they offer. And again, reiterating, it's not meant for the first time user because it can be a tiny bit confusing, but if you're used to browsing the web, you'll understand this application pretty easily. And scored this 2 out of 3 for familiarity. And the final thing that I'm reviewing Steam over is mobility. The mobile app, which can be seen over to the right, is very different, but it's understandable from the main app. You can tell that it's a Steam product, just mainly by the colors and the fact that they put on Steam, and a lot of the design is the same, the font. You can't use it for the same thing, though. Like, you can't play games or use the content that you've downloaded, at least not all of it, through the mobile app, not yet. And again, it can be a little confusing because there's a lot of words versus actions that are offered on this. But for the most part, it makes sense, and for those who have the mobile app and want it, it's a good addition. But again, I give this a 2 out of 3 for mobility. So the Steam final score is 11. Next, I'm moving on to Spotify to judge their user interface. First part is design again. Spotify is very interesting to look at with the slideshows of the bands that you can see in the background, the pictures, and the way the graphics are used to enunciate what's going on the screen, whether you're using mobile or PC or Mac. It's always interesting to look at. Everything is logical, and it works as it appears. So if you want to find a genre, it'll take you right to that genre. I gave Spotify the design score of 3 out of 3. Their website navigation. They don't really have a website version of the streaming service. You have to download the app for a PC or a Mac. But the PC and the Mac navigation is a little different than the mobile, but that's what I was judging here, was the application on the PC, Mac versus the mobile. And again, it's simple and clear. It makes sense. What are you looking for? Are you trying to find an album, a song, an artist? Which artist? There's a search bar at the top. How do you get to your playlist? You click on your playlist. It's pretty simple. A novice to moderate web user can pick this up pretty easily. I gave Spotify web navigation a 3 out of 3. So Spotify content. Well, they are a music streaming service that offers music. Big surprise. And they nail it. They're always adding new content, and it's easily accessible pretty much anywhere you go. And again, score 3 out of 3. Spotify's familiarity. It's not a standard website, but they do make it intriguing by adding in pictures and colors and other things that you can associate just being a human in order to make sense out of their application. That's what makes their usability so good. The product easily identifies the needs of the user and helps guide them to a different area by relating to the user. Again, what do you like? How do you feel today? So I gave Spotify's familiarity 3 out of 3. Mobility. So transition from PC to mobile is seamless. It's nearly using the same thing, just a tiny bit compact on a mobile platform. Mobile is just as attractive. They still use the pictures and colors to attract you to certain areas that are important to the app. The mobile version, I think, is more friendly, and my point on that. Not saying that the PC version or Mac version is worse. It's just, when was the last time you had a friend pull out their laptop to play Spotify? Everyone just uses their cell phone for this. Not that it doesn't happen, but the mobility is definitely a 3 out of 3 for Spotify, which gives Spotify's total score a 15, which is a perfect score. Next, we're moving on to an antivirus software that I had used for a while, called Bitdefender. Bitdefender's design. It looks clean, it looks sharp, and you can even compare it to, at first glance, to Spotify and maybe even Steam that I reviewed earlier. The design, though, has a big learning curve. You have to know a little bit about what you're doing with the antivirus, like what the antivirus program does. It's not made for everyone. It's made for a specific use, and not everything makes sense unless you've used it before. So, not saying it's a bad project or product, it's just there is a learning curve, a big one. Their website navigation. This is the older model. When I first started using it, 5 years ago, and it's a little more confusing. There's no clear home button on the app. There is on the website, but the apps were just a tiny bit confusing. You need to understand similar programs in order to get the hang of Bitdefender. Again, back to other firewalls and anti-spam, antivirus programs. If you're familiar with those, then you'll get the hang of this. But if you're just a basic web user, it's going to take a second to browse through this application to understand it. Again, not meant for the first-time users. I gave Bitdefender's website navigation 1 out of 3. Bitdefender's content. Well, they offer security on a PC and mobile, and they do a pretty reasonable job at that. Their in-app sales are a little sneaky, but can easily be seen or avoided. In general, they give what they offer. So I give that a 3 out of 3. The familiarity. Again, it's confusing. Look at the icons on the left side of the picture. So the B shield, that's the home button for the app, which it's just not familiar to anyone. When you think of a home button, you might think of the house, or even just like it is the Bitdefender icon, but it would make sense to me to have like the Bitdefender Antivirus Plus 2018, which is listed at the very top, be the home button. And then we have an eye, a tool set, a graph, a bell. No one's going to know what any of these mean just opening up this application for the first time. Again, for the most part, the only thing it's going to be familiar to is other antivirus programs. For the most part, it's usable, but again, a big learning curve. The score I gave this for familiarity is a 2 out of 3. Finally, mobility for Bitdefender. The funny thing about Bitdefender is their mobile app actually works not better, but it's easier to understand, and you can see by the picture how they have they describe which each icon does, which is kind of odd because you'd think that's something you'd shrink down for a mobile version, but they don't have it in the desktop version, so it's a little funny. It's functional and clear and easy to use. It's similar to the PC app, but different in key areas. So it's, for the most part, it's good. I gave it a 2 out of 3. Final score for Bitdefender for the user interface is a total score of 9 out of 15. Finally, we'll be reviewing Netflix, the video streaming service. They do still mail out DVDs, but who orders that? Alright, first off, design. It's easy to understand. Right away, like everyone knows movie genres. If you're downloading Netflix, you're going to go for the movie genres. So horror, comedy, and such. Important areas are highlighted, and most of those are genres, how to browse, if you actually wanted to rent a DVD from them. Novice can use these, use Netflix's website and applications pretty easily without much knowledge of the of how to use the internet. And so for design, I gave Netflix a 3 out of 3. Their website navigation. It's easy to use and it's forgiving. It makes sense when you want to back out something. It makes sense when you're searching for something. It's a seamless, very well thought out system that Netflix has. Very little to no web usage is required, especially with the tablet that's pictured there. If you just have a finger and you just want to press things, you're not going to get into any trouble or get lost in Netflix by just punching away. Moving from one area to the next is seamless. Again, they make it easy to back out. They make it easy to find what you just watched, or go back to what you watched previously, or find things that are similar to what you like. So in general, the web navigation is very good. I've given them a 3 out of 3. Netflix content. Well, they're a movie streaming service and the DVD rental service, but the streaming service is excellent. It's, the only complaints I really hear are what's available, or maybe the types of movies that they offer, but for the most part, their content is readily available, and it's easy to access. It's easy to navigate through the content, again, through recommendations and just clear labeling. Again, giving them a 3 out of 3 for content. Familiarity. Netflix's whole thing is trying to target the entire family. They want everyone to use it. That's why you can have so many users per account. And that being said, they want someone that is 70 years old to be able to use it just as easily as someone that's 5 years old. So in how they do that, they make it familiar with things that you'd recognize as a human versus things you'd recognize by using the internet or another application. Expectations are as they seem. If you want to get into comedies, you're going to find comedies. It's pretty straightforward. Limited knowledge of web usage is needed to understand this product. Again, this is just playing to the human side versus the technology side. They use colors and highlighted areas to help direct you where you want to go or where you want to browse around on their application or their website. And finally, mobility. This is probably the best mobile app that I've reviewed, but I feel like it's not used as often as Spotify, just kind of in desperate situations when you're bored waiting for a flight. But it's clear. It's clearly a Netflix product. If you open it up, like the font's the same, the colors are the same, the way they display everything is the same, just kind of in a miniature, compact form. It's simple to use, just as simple as the primary app or the website. It makes sense, and again, meant for everyone, all age groups. And again, it's small because it's meant for travel. They compacted everything to where it makes sense, and it looks good on a cell phone or a tablet. In mobility, I give them a score of 3 out of 3. And again, I got another perfect score of 15 out of 15 for Netflix. And that rounds up my presentation. Thank you.